Hey everyone, I'm AdamHarry with
JayArr.
We're from BoLS, and today we're taking you through Coreball. We're going to be covering the components of the game, as well as some light gameplay in this video.
Coreball is the zero-gravity sport. It pits 2 to 4 players in teams against one another as they vie for control of a ball in zero-gravity environments.
Yes, and that puts them at the mercy of asteroids, debris, and of course our good friend physics.
Ah, yes, physics.
This game does have a pretty cool mechanic with momentum, and we're going to be showing you all that stuff right now.
Coreball's board is a layered board that has a clear top and a number of sheets that you'll slide underneath. These are called circuit sheets, each representing a different course. Courses include the asteroid field, lunar surface, wormhole, and more, but today we're taking a look at the asteroid field.
During the game round, there are 3 phases. The first phase is Substitutions. This is when you get to bring new flyers on the board. This, of course, is skipped during the first round because you already have the maximum numbers of flyers. Next up is the Activation. This is where you're going to take turns alternating activations of your flyers and performing actions. Again, you can move 2 squares and perform 1 action in any order. The final step is the resolution step phase. This will be when you resolve momentum and terrain effects, score victory points, and prepare a new round. To get started, we have the flank circuit sheet without any obstacles placed for deployment.
Each section of the field has its own rules. The asteroid field is represented by these following obstacles.
We've got a force field, which is the red barriers. When we'll explain all this in more detail, but after a flyer moves through this obstacle, that flyer is wounded. We have a kinetic barrier, which after a flyer moves through this obstacle, they become tired when they'll get a tired token. There's an asteroid, which when during the resolution phase, each flyer on the square is wounded. There is
the open obstacle, which is an open obstacle that allows you to set up a railgun in either direction. There's the railgun, which is an obstacle that after you move through it, your flyer gains a momentum token in the direction shown by the arrow. And then, of course, there's the debris, which during the resolution phase, every flyer that ends their turn receives a tired token. We're going to go through what all of those mean, but we're also going to show off the board. Round by round, the board changes, and circuit sheets are slid underneath. So the board might look like this one round, and then at the end of another round, or at the start of a new round, it might look like this. As you can see, you're never sure what's going to come next. Each round, your plans will change on the fly, and you'll have different things to go through.
Now, you can pull the sheets out from under the board and replace them that way. They recommend to pull them out and then place a new sheet. We found it to be easier to just put the sheet on top of the other sheet. The teams are consistent of miniatures called flyers. Each flyer represents a different member of the team. There are rules for constructing your own custom teams, but for right now, we've got starter teams, and they consist of 3 special characters and 5 merc characters. The flyer cards hold all of the necessary information to use for each flyer throughout a match. The front side of the card shows the regular state of the flyer, while the back side shows their wounded state.
Flyer cards consist of the following. You have the flyer's name, their special abilities, their flavor text, then of course we have their different attributes. Starting from the top, we have ball skill, push skill, grapple skill, dodge skill, hacking skill, and firewall skill. Now that might seem like a lot, but it's basically the starting number you'll use to figure out how good you are at a given action.
If you have a 0 in a skill, that particular flyer cannot perform that skill. So in the case of the center here, they cannot perform a grapple or those subsequent actions, or a hack and those subsequent actions. During the game turn, you're going to be activating your flyers, and they will be committing different actions. On your turn, you can perform 2 moves and 1 action. Those actions can include picking up a ball, stealing a ball, passing a ball, pushing, grappling, escaping a grapple, or hacking, which allows you to switch on or off the onboard obstacles. Now in this case, JayArr has activated the center. The center has moved into a square with a tackle. JayArr, what action would you like to perform?
I'd like to try to push you.
Okay, this creates a conflict where the target that is being pushed, which is my tackle, has to choose a counter to being pushed. Relevant options for pushing are counter pushing, dodging, or counter grappling. Now, there's different effects here, but for this example, we're just going to do, we're going to attempt to dodge.
All right.
So I'm going to compare my dodge skill, which is a 1, with JayArr's push skill, which is a 1. So we're going to take our decks. These are called action decks. There are 4 action decks included, and their backs are different for the color. You're going to be handing out a deck per player.
Now, the way you resolve a conflict like this is each player flips over a card, and then you look at the number on the bottom and add that to your skill total. In this case, we've tied. In this game, ties go to the aggressor, so that means that I win.
That's right. And because you chose to do a push action, the pusher can now move the target flyer to any adjacent an orthogonal square.
So like that.
Yes. Legal moves would be back, up, down, or even opposite.
There you go. Most actions in the game are resolved in this fashion. Whatever you'll look at your skill, you'll flip a card, you'll compare the number. It's pretty simple, and it plays pretty fast. As you can see, actions go from 1 through 4, and when you're performing these actions, you'll notice they all have extra text here as well. If you're attempting an action and you fail, you get to add this card to your hand, basically, to your play area, instead of discarding it. And you'll want to do that sometimes because, as you can see, they have some powerful abilities. The Preventative Missile, for instance, lets you ignore the effects of area terrain during the resolution step. As you'll see when we play through this, that can be clutch.
There are 4 cards for each number, and each card has a slightly different effect if it's got a different name. Each player is going to have the same set of 16 cards that they'll have access to during the game that will make up their action deck. Whenever you're out of cards in your action deck, simply reshuffle your discard pile and start drawing from the top again. Over the course of a Coreball match, flyers will engage in a contest for the ball or balls to score points while trying to take out as many opponent flyers as possible to cause the other team or teams to lose points. A regular Coreball match lasts 4 rounds. The player with the most VPs at the end of the 4th round wins. Each player begins the match with 5 VPs. During the course of a match, a player can score or lose VPs in several ways. You can gain 3 VPs for each ball controlled by one of your flyers at the end of each round. A player loses 1 VP each time one of his flyers is wounded or killed. A player also loses 2 VPs each time one of their flyers moves to the reserve, which is the area where the players keep their flyers who are not currently on the board outside of that flyer's activation. A player immediately loses 1 VP each time one of their flyers moves to the reserve area during their activation after performing an action, or if they have any tired tokens. If a flyer moves to the reserves during his activation without performing an action, nor having any tired tokens, no VPs are lost. That means there are situations when you can fly off the board voluntarily to avoid losing VPs. Keep in mind that players can never have less than 0 VPs, and players may still perform actions or movements that would otherwise cause them to lose VPs, effectively performing them for free.
If, at the end of the game, both players have the same number of victory points, the player controlling the most balls wins. If the tied players control the same number of balls, the player with the more remaining flyers wins. If all players have the same number of flyers, the player with the most healthy flyers wins. If all players have the same number of unwounded flyers, the player with more playing cards in their play area wins. If, after all that, everyone has the same number of playing cards, the same number of everything else, the game ends in a tie and there is no winner. The most important token of all in this game is the ball token, which you can see here. You will be playing with up to 1 less ball than the number of players. So since Adam and I are only 2 teams, we'll have 1 ball in the game.
If we were playing a game with 4 players, there would be 3 balls to try to contest during the game.
Other tokens include momentum tokens. These represent the drift and the speed at which the flyers are moving through the game. There's one corresponding to each direction.
If a flyer moves through a rail cannon, they will gain momentum based on the direction of the rail cannon. So in this example, if my tackle moved through this rail cannon, I would gain 1 green momentum because that's the direction I'd be moving. This would go on my player card, but for now we're going to keep it there. Now if I did something to gain a opposite momentum token, like a purple, these two would cancel each other out because you can't have momentum in both directions. But if I have a momentum that was a purple and also a yellow, during the resolution step, I would then follow the momentums for that. So I would move purple and yellow. In this case, yellow first, and then purple would take me off the board. You typically don't want to end your turn on an obstacle if you can help it. There are these energy gates here that if you cross, you will get to place a railgun.
And you can place it in any direction if you move through an open one. So you can set yourself up for success later that round. However, an enemy hacker, or even your own if you need to, can switch off any obstacle by hacking them off. To do that, you just place the switched off token.
There are other various tokens as well. The hacking action can allow you to place hacking tokens on other players. These players will prevent other players from moving. Their suits have been hacked by the hacker.
Yep. Or if you attempt something strenuous, you might gain a tired token. Tired tokens prevent you from taking actions. So again, if you're tired, you can move but not take actions. If you're hacked, you can take actions but you can't move. As you can see, a flyer can have multiple tokens assigned to them. So you might have 3 or more tired tokens or 1 hacked token, as our poor center here. At the end of that flyer's activation, you remove 1 of each from the activated flyer. So, in this case, our center loses 1 tired and 1 hacked token, but is left with 2. It'll be a few more rounds before our center can do anything.
Grappling is another big part of the game. It's an action a player can use for a flyer to try to take control of an opponent in the same square as that flyer. But once the flyer becomes a grappler, the target flyer becomes grappled. Use this grapple token to connect the base of both flyers with the arrow pointing towards the grappled flyer. Now there's some situations where this comes up. If a ball carrier is grappled, they immediately drop the ball as well.
Bloop. If you're grappled and the opponent grappling you has more momentum tokens in one direction than you do, and guess what, buddy? You're going for a ride as you gain that same number of momentum tokens. If you are a grappler and you grapple someone who has more momentum tokens than you, you've just grabbed hold of a comet and you are moving, you are gaining the same number of momentum tokens. So be careful what you're grappling because you never know where you might end up.
Furthermore, you can combine your grapple with a move to drag people off the board. So, in this case, we're going to set this up where the tackle is attempting to grab the center.
All
so
right.
again, this is going to cause a conflict, so we're going to resolve that. The tackle value that my tackler has is 3 for the grapple.
I am going to attempt to dodge, which is 3.
Yep, reveal your card.
Oh no, I got a 1.
I got a 4. That makes my total a 7 compared to your total of 4.
You win.
You are grappled. And because I still have movement left, I'm just going to take us both right off the board. When you leave the play area, not only do you lose VP, you also lose any other tokens associated with you as well.
The
So
ball
this can help clear momentum.
The ball remains behind because the ball can never leave the board. And one other thing it does is it removes one of your opponent's flyers from the game, or from the turn. So you might be able to give yourself an advantage by pushing someone or grappling someone off the circuit.
There are 2 more tokens we want to talk about. The first one is the first player token. Whoever has this player token is the first player for the round. At the end of the round, the first player token passes to the player on the left. In a 2-player game, you're really just going to be alternating back and forth.
Pretty much everything that you expect a first player token to do. The other token here, you can see with these little crosses on them, are limited tokens. Some characters, particularly the special characters, each team has a few unique characters to them, have abilities that are limited. They'll have limited and a number. In this case, King has a reaction he can use that's got limited 1. When you use a limited reaction, you give yourself a limited token. When you have enough limited tokens to equal that limited number, then that's it. So in this case, limited 1 means you can do it once per turn. You might have something that's limited 3, you can keep doing it.
That's right. And once the round ends or the activation ends, you remove and you clear those tokens during the resolution step, you can use those actions again. Bunching up is another concept we want to talk about. There can never be more than 2 flyers from the same team in the same square, or more than 4 flyers from any team in a single square. It is still possible to move through squares already occupied by 4 flyers, or by 2 flyers from your team, but a flyer cannot perform an action or end its movement on such a square. A flyer moving through a square in which it cannot stay cannot be the target of actions that would be resolved while they stand in that square. If a flyer is forced, after either resolving momentum, being pushed, or other effects outside of their direct control, to move and end their movement in a square in which they cannot stay due to bunching up, it forces another one of the flyers in his team to move the opposite direction from whence they came. If there are no flyers from his team, his controller chooses another flyer and moves him in the same manner. This can force flyers to leave the circuit through a border. A flyer forced to move out of a square might trigger this occurrence again in the square to which he is forced to move. In such cases, resolve it in the same manner before resuming the game. Well, that was Coreball, and now you know enough to get started. Our recommendation is to follow the initial setup and run through those steps the first couple of times. Probably play a couple of rounds and it'll all start to click.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to pick up once you've played it a couple of times, and then the real game begins.
Well, thanks for joining us on this Coreball overview.
Be sure and check out our gameplay video for more information.
I'm AdamHarry.
I'm JayArr.
We're from BoLS.
Thanks for watching.
Click to subscribe. Check out more videos. And thanks for watching.